Welcome once again, and that was Olumide Akpata, the Labour Party governorship candidate in Edo State, also earlier sharing his views on the elections so far. And of course, his concerns that he also mentioned 2 trucks at the Senator Adams Oshiomhole, the former governor of Edo State, as his residence in GRA in Benin, which he said is something of a cause of concern for him. But of course, we continue these discussions this morning. We also were joined earlier by Amadine Uyi, who is in Edo State, to speak with 2 of the persons from the electoral process, the representatives of their different parties over there. But let's quickly bring in this morning the ADC's Lagos State chairman, Mr. George Ashiru, who's joining us to also x-ray the elections in Edo State. He is, just found out this morning, a Taekwondo master. So I'm sure he can teach us a little bit before we're done. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well.
Thank you.
Well. So first of all, I think we should, start with talking about why this election is important to the people of Edo State. They have their own standalone elections along with Ondo State, which is coming up in November, I believe. But why is this very important to the people of Edo State?
I think for the same reason that any form of democratic activity is important. Participation of the people in deciding who their leaders are, opportunity to vote for the policies that they believe will assist them in achieving their life's goals in those areas of residences in Edo State. So not having that franchise is more or less removing someone's human right. So for the people of Edo State, I would say in advance, congratulations, because no matter what happened in the distant past, when the legislative processes and the legal processes created that distortion that allows their elections to be held in a different time frame, yes, the bottom line is that it's going on without any excuse. So I would think that it's cause that they should celebrate.
All right, well, looking at the process so far, what can you say about it? So many people have actually come out to say that it's been peaceful, and they're excited at the fact that so many people have turned up. So there's been no voter apathy in, most of the polling units, especially the major polling units.
Yes, compared to Lagos State.
All right, just hold on. Apologies. We need to speak with, or we need to listen to Frank Umba, who's the police side who has been deployed in Edo State, as he addresses pressmen over there as well. Well, while we're trying to get that fixed, we're also, going to continue to fine-tune that, or maybe have a recorded version and share with our viewers this morning. Okay, I think we have the audio. Please go ahead. Let's listen to him.
I'm impressed by what I've seen. Areas where we've received minor complaints, we've risen up to the challenge, and we've been able to fix those ones. We're still out continuing on our monitoring. We are cautiously optimistic that all will end well, that have begun well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, listening to Frank Umba speak and still talking about, the process so far, so many people have also complained about, making the election look so militarized. What are your thoughts on that?
The circumstance we find ourselves requires the presence of good security agencies. Apathy actually comes from insecurity. The majority of people who don't go out is they take past experiences and say, I don't feel safe. Apart from inclement weather, apart from other reasons like a very large crowd that would make even more people stay at home. Fact is, elections in Nigeria and violence have been synonymous with each other. So what we're seeing so far this morning is evidence that there's that initial excitement. But don't forget that ballot snatching doesn't usually happen first thing in the morning. It usually happens when there's a tendency towards the end. When you look at the vote counts, you begin to see possibility that one party seems to have a lot more people supporting them based on exit polls. That's when you see the violence. So what I would say is that they should learn from past experience and stay focused and attention throughout the entire voting process. And I'm speaking to the police and other security agencies. But what we have seen so far, it looks like it's going very well.
I mean, but there's two reasons it will happen. It's either, when the counting seems to be almost concluding and one, party feels like they're losing, or, simply as a way to disenfranchise persons from the stronghold of one political party, So it could happen at any time. It could happen in the morning
Absolutely.
if they believe that this is this person's stronghold and so we need to disrupt
Absolutely.
it here. So, my concern really is that, we still haven't developed our electoral process, to a stage where we don't need to have the army and the police flood the whole state just because of the elections. And what do you think we're still failing to do in order to have that type of election?
Democracy is a culture. It's a culture that is not yet a part of our normal lifestyle as a nation. We come from feudalistic traditions. We come from hierarchical systems. We come from monarchies. We come from strong religious backgrounds where the men at the top tell us what to do. People are not used to the opportunity to decide for themselves. And so the current electoral process, democracy we're practicing, is just 25 years old. So really, we shouldn't compare ourselves with nations that have had generations of tweaking the system and children born 100% into democracy. So the Gen Zs that we have now and the generations that will come after, they were born into a democratic practice, and they will be able to imbibe it further, going down the line. But I think we should give ourselves some laxity in that regard, that a lot of people are still seeing democracy for now as an aberration from their culture and their traditions.
Yeah. The point that I was, trying to put out earlier, when I was asking you, why is election important? There are certain factors that have come up in the build-up to the elections. The deputy governor of the state, if you remember, he was impeached. He, of course, then moved from the PDP back to the APC, begged for forgiveness from Adams Oshomole and all of that, all that drama. We were also seeing the Labour Party, of course, also trying its hand for the first time to win the elections in Edo State. The PDP itself, we have Governor Obaseki with his own preferred candidate, that's where Godalo. When you hear some of these details, with the APC and the way that it has fared nationally, the PDP, of course, with Governor Obaseki's, result sheet being put in front of him to see how the people would vote, and of course with the Labour Party, what comes to mind? What do you think should be in the mentality of the people of Edo State?
All the stuff you've mentioned is politics. And it's not unusual. We've had Obasanjo and Atiku fallouts when they were in power, the same way the governor and the deputy governor of Edo State have done. We've seen the former vice president of Nigeria in the same party then support another party while he was still a vice president of this country.
Yes.
So we have antecedents. And they've gone to courts, several times during that period. And the legal system says people have freedoms, to make decisions for themselves. But I think those areas are politics. They're not really negative as far as we're concerned. Where we have a problem is when it starts to become a criminal issue, when people start to violate constitution and violate the laws, take the laws into their hands. Then we begin to worry. When supporters start getting violent in support of one of the parties against the other, where monies or corruption starts to increase, in order to empower one party against the other and to ensure that the state as a whole does not benefit from the entire experience of democracy, that's when we should start taking note of. So, but I think the critical thing for us is that we need to define what we call democracy. We need the people to understand what it's all about and what the benefits are. And for now, people sometimes wonder whether it's better to be under the military rule. And I think you should see. In any corporate system, whatever culture is created at leadership cascades down to every branch of that organization. So if INEC at the national level had problems conducting presidential elections, so on and so forth, let us not presume that it's just one single governorship election. They should be able to bring all the resources. The fact of the matter is the culture, the practice, the internal processes, methodologies, the ideas that they have about how to run elections. It will continue to be cascaded down even to the local government elections if they are the ones organizing it. So we are not expecting anything beyond what happened in 2023 because previous 4 years is the same thing. The previous 4 years, it was the same thing. The previous 4 years, same thing. It's the culture.
Yeah, but how do you keep that up? because if we say, that 2019 elections, were, bad. I mean, poorly rated. Let's not call it completely bad, but poorly rated. 2023 elections, pretty much the same thing. 2015, almost no difference. So how do you then keep up that system, and just continue to elect your leaders, through the same process, through poorly rated process, back to back every 4 years?
Because the way we select leadership for INEC matters. It is not truly independent. I've been here in this studio when one of your colleagues asked me that question. How do we elect or select the INEC chairman and INEC chairpersons in every state? Does it create room for the kind of transparency and openness where the right people are in those positions? So why can't a Soyinka be there? Yeah. Why can't someone who's completely neutral, who has not been in the system, just based on the power of his personality and his competence, be allowed to play that role? So we have the issues where, again, the culture that's created is just another axis of government, another arm of the ruling party. So you do not expect that arm to get... I'll give you an example. As a party chairman during the last election, I requested for police support for my candidate. And a consultant told me that you're not going to get it because instructions have been passed on that they should support the ruling party. So that is showing you, what I mean by we do not have enough independence within the system for a particular arm of that government or a particular system or protocol that we have established to be able to independently do a good job. So INEC is not any different from that. So until we begin to look at the way we talked about local government autonomy, our expectation is that local governments being autonomous will allow them to now focus on serving the people rather than their leaders. So they will now know that people are going to ask them, look, I know you have received 1.6 billion. This is not a matter of the governor. It's in your account.
They have direct access.
Yes. Yeah. So why are these rules not fixed? Why is this place not there? Okay, you know what? Next time I'm not going to campaign for you. At that point, the local government chairman is not going to be worried about the governor. He's going to be worried about him not getting the votes of the people in the next election. So these are the things that we also need to do at every level. You see, we are experimenting in our democracy. I accept that. It's
been a long experiment.
We are experimenting, but we don't have enough willpower to make the necessary changes. Somebody asked me a question this morning. Why is NNPC MD appointed by the government? It's a corporate entity. Why can't it be open for anybody from anywhere in the world to run it as a corporate entity? Why is it not PLC so that we can all buy shares and own and require, through the stakeholders forum for accountability? Again, these are things that it's common sense to anybody anywhere else, but as long as there is an insidious desire not to let people be involved in governance, then the people in authority will not make the change necessary.
All right, now just before we go on a short break, I would love for you to speak about, some people are still uneasy about the fact that the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike's cousin, his name is Anubum Onoha, is the REC chairman in this Edo State elections, governorship elections. People are still uneasy about that. How do you think, and it seems like, him coming out to even talk about, transparency and not having anything to do with his cousin has actually exacerbated elicited a lot of reactions as well. So what do you think about this whole, drama surrounding this?
We don't hold Wike responsible. We hold the president responsible. President appointed a minister, is not elected into office. And if there's an unethical practice, then the president should be able to come out and say, no, it's not acceptable, it's going to affect the reputation of my government. So whether it's the president that approved it or because Wike is not in Edo State. He's not from Edo State. So we have to presume that somebody at the top, at the presidency, approved the movement of such a person. It's unethical, it's inappropriate, it's nepotic, and unfortunately, there's a thing called impunity in this country. It's like, I've done it, do your worst, or go to court, as they say. So we have to make it clear that one of the reasons people are going to go to court is precisely because of that decision. A lot of people are just going to say, I just don't have trust that this person that is there is going to give me the right kind of balance and neutral result that we're looking for. He will manipulate the system one way or the other. And just for that single reason, some people will decide to go to court and look for evidence to back their expectations.
So, unfortunately, I mean, that sounds comforting, that, people can lean back and say, well, however the election goes, I can always challenge it. But of course, we've seen the way court cases were interpreted in 2023, and most especially the Abuja decision as the FCT, of course, the relevance of the FCT. But we're going to go on a break. I would like that we continue with this conversation because it's not just ONOHA, the REC. There was also one of the national commissioners for the Edo State elections, INEC National Commissioners, Professor Rhoda Gumus, who is an APC member, apparently. There was, I think this came out yesterday, APC membership card, was also put out. So we would expand more on this, and how relevant going to court is really in 2024.
Thank you.
But let's, go on a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to have analytics on the Edo State elections drawn and shared with us. We have our correspondent and our IT expert joining us after the short break. Stay with us. The numbers are very important. It is the numbers that will determine who becomes governor of Edo State today, of course, leading to the next 4 years. And so what will the people of Edo Central, Edo North, or Edo South, vote? Does, where these candidates come from even matter? Because I remember there was an argument as to whether it was time for Edo Central and all candidates must come from Edo Central. The Labour Party, of course, downplayed that argument because their candidate is not from Edo Central. He's from Edo South. Will his popularity in Edo South be able to win him an election in his local government, or from his region, and of course spread into other regions, Edo Central and Edo North? Or will the popularity of the other two candidates blow, these other two away? We're also getting reports, and we're going to have George Ashiru join us, to share his thoughts on this one right after I talk about the initial thing. The reports of underage voters also joining us, and this is from Irua in Edo Central, I believe. Yes, it shows there underage voters, clearly underage voters. There's no argument as to whether these persons are above 18 taking part in the process. These persons, very likely do not have voters' cards.
Well,
if they do, then, many more questions need to be asked as well.
One question I actually want to ask is, why is it that, it's obvious that these people actually underage? Why is no one doing anything about it? Where are the INEC officials? Why are they not going to the queues and trying to stop them from, joining the queue and voting? Let's hear from our guest in the studio, George Ashiru, what you have to say about, the underage voters.
Have you noticed that everything else in this country, you have to link your name to every form of identification? I'm not aware that you have to link your name to your voter's card yet. Can you confirm that?
That you can link your what now?
Your name to your voter's card.
No, you can't.
So how do you then choose who to prosecute when you cannot even have the evidence based on data already existing that they are underage? What is really wrong with the political processes in Nigeria? Again, I guess I said it's impunity. You can see the evidence on television, but when you go to court, this person will tell you that I just look young. I am.
Yeah, we actually saw lots of cases of that in Kano during the 2015 elections.
Yeah, people will come and say they have medical conditions, so on and so forth. But this is an opportunity to ask INEC before the next major elections, including local government elections, to begin to insist that people should go online and link their name to their cards. Otherwise, those cards should not be able to have... anyway, the truth is our cards are not electronic devices. The cards are just identification methods. If they had pinstripe, we would probably have a technological electoral process by now. But it's really shameful.
Well, I think there was a time INEC was actually speaking about, linking the voters' cards to NIN and also, turning it to a debit card as well, where people can actually, go to ATMs and withdraw monies and everything. We're yet to see that happen.
Well, the truth is we don't even need voters' card. A national ID card should be able to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, we should convert a national ID card. You know, we should get everybody to have a national ID card that does everything. The same national ID card gets you your passport, it gets you entry into wherever, because it's the only thing that's properly validated. So we do have an opportunity here again for INEC to improve on its capacity to deliver the dividends of democracy for the next major election if it begins to adopt this as a fresh opportunity. But this is evidence that we cannot look away from.
Yeah. So just for clarity, Irua is in Auchi, Esako West, which is in Edo North local government area of Edo State. Edo North is where Adams Oshomole, the former governor, comes from. He's currently senator representing Edo North. You know, so just to put. I just want us to be clear.
Are you trying to make reference to the truck that was also cited?
Well, just wanted to be sure you know what we're saying here. Anyway, let's go back to the concerns that we had earlier, which is the resident electoral commissioner, Mr. Onuoha. The response that INEC gave from the news report is that the elections are not going to be held in the resident electoral commissioner's office. They're going to be held across, you know, the state, the polling booths across the state. And so, you know, it's not a big enough issue for INEC to have to deal with. I also got to see yesterday, and of course, you know, I would, for safety, say this is unconfirmed, you know, but there was a APC membership, you know, a card that was posted yesterday showing one of the national commissioners for INEC, for Edo State, also being an APC member. So wouldn't you say that these issues are big enough, you know, normally for an election to, I mean, for these people to maybe be suspended or at least be replaced?
Absolutely. People in that situation should recuse themselves. You know, once you have been associated with something that is unethical, even if it is legal, on your own, you should recuse yourself. You should be able to say, for the purpose of this election, I will step down for 1 month, I will go on leave, or I will leave the country for a week or 2 weeks, go for a course or whatever, so that nobody's saying you can't have a job. What we're saying is that there is an appearance of impropriety. And as long as that appearance exists, it has a way of influencing the opinion people have about the outcome of the elections.
Yeah.
You know, and this is part of what makes democracy difficult again. The moment people start having that feeling that there is a pre-planned outcome based on what they have seen, then people are not going to ever trust the democratic process.
Yeah.
So you cannot have INEC giving us that whimsical excuse that people are going to vote. We know that it is not the voting that's the problem. We know it's what happens at the collation centers that is the problem. At the collation centers, the voters don't go there. We know that you can influence. Look, I have monitored elections as a state chairman where everybody voted, but by the time you got the results posted on social media or whatever, it didn't tally with what was supposedly signed off on. Because when they got to collation centers, some things were accepted, some things were thrown out. And people can't get into collation centers. When you get there, they will say, where's your sticker? Where's your card? Where's this? Where's that? Sometimes they will tell all the collation officers from all parties to stay out. This is just the collation officers from the government, that is INEC, that will be in the collation rooms. There have been times that people have slept out and they will tell you that they're going to count by one, and next thing you know, they're announcing the results. So whether you like it or not, the fact of the matter is that this is an appearance of impropriety. It's unethical, unacceptable, and we must be consistent in saying it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're also being told that we've been joined by Adeni Kunu. He's a lecturer and African affairs analyst. Thank you so much for joining us, Adeni, at this time.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning to everybody over there. Thank you.
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you. So we'd love for you to continue from where Mr. Ashiru stopped. He was talking about external influences, you know, and the role that the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory's cousin would actually play in these elections, considering that, you know, speaking of neutrality and also considering that he's also a commissioner, a resident electoral commissioner in Edo State.
There are two parts to this conversation, and until we come to terms with the fact that competence should supersede whatever it is, sentiments about things are. And at the same time, if we find ourselves in a multi-ethnic society, we're also able to manage the diversity of emotions that come from it. Then we'll continue to have conversations that come in this manner. In the first place, you have to ask the question. The cousin of the FCC personnel you talked about, in the first place, you need to ask the question, is he competent or not? That's the first conversation. Has he measured up to the standard of being appointed as expected? That's another thing you have to be able to answer. If those questions are answered properly, then I do not think Nigerians have a reason to worry about the person who definitely gets posted to Edo State because of his connection to certain persons in power. But at the same time, you cannot wish away the concerns of the people. In a democracy, when there's a consciousness regarding what somebody is or who somebody is, you also must understand that anything that causes disaffection will actually affect a whole lot of people. And that's why in the case of Justice Bukalchua, when certain issues were raised concerning a particular major verdict at the appeal court a couple of years ago, she had to recuse herself. So I think that is where the concerns of the people are valid. Having considered the due part of this conversation, one thing that remains fundamental is the nature of our institutions and what we build. I have been privileged to tell people, and on occasions when I come into your studio, that until we come to terms with building institutions that are strong enough and that are not questionable, and that those institutions we build are occupied by persons who will not cause concern or unrest by certain persons who are stakeholders, then we're just embarking on a journey of reconciling ourselves with the reality of what makes for proper politicking. You wouldn't want to tell me that 25 years, which is quarter of a century, the country has not been able to tidy up certain loose ends. And that's why many of the news headlines have tagged Yakubu, the INEC chairperson, as somebody who would have the opportunity to redeem himself at this election. Such conversation should never happen. I therefore would say that it is more or less like a death knell right now, because there is nothing anybody can do to change the decision of the man that had been posted right there to Edo State. So what we need now is for the respective stakeholders themselves to be properly behaved. And the reality of the fact that the people who have certain roles to play, from the respective party agents to the respective ad hoc personnel of INEC, to those particularly on the employ of INEC as the direct members of staff, to do their due diligence and carry out their duties properly so as to prevent anything that will result in disaffections post this election. And I tell you this, that if everybody that has a responsibility to ensure this is tidied up does his or her work, we wouldn't have any problem with it. So it is key, therefore, to say that Nigerians must also be a part of the process that will enable of our strong institution. For instance, from the feelers I have, I'm aware that one of the major parties, because we've got about 17 parties, one of the three main parties, or the three major parties as it were, no disrespect to other parties, have already started incentivizing some electorate. At this point, what are we supposed to do? At the instance that somebody got to find out that this incentivization, which is wrong and inappropriate, is taking place, you deploy security operatives there to arrest those that are doing what they shouldn't do, and you take other things in place. So we need to understand that these are the kind of conversations we have, even where elections are taking place, and you also ensure that the people saddled with the responsibility to arrest those doing such do not look away from that. There is nowhere in the world, for instance, where you don't have somebody you can refer to as your political mentor, or in common parlance, godfather. But you expect a political godfather to take you through all of what is needed for you to ensure that you don't bungle a process, to get you prepared in such a way that as an individual, you merit the office you occupy, you are going to allow a brief retrospection. Even inter-party ideals were disrespected, such that, except of course for the Labour Party that had less of those skirmishes, the PDP and the APC had lots of problems regarding who eventually becomes the candidate of choice to represent them in this election. So that itself is a reflection of the abnormalities existed, even on the side of the political parties, and by extension on the part of the party members, and also by extension on the part of the electorate. So we should not just look at what we feel INEC has not done right by virtue of who INEC has posted to the state. We should also look at individuals that are stakeholders in the election. Are we making our choices right? Will they be able to make proper choices to ensure that we do not have a repeat of the malfeasance that perhaps have taken place in the past 4-8 years, and the pain of not delivering on the terms of reference as the governor of a state in certain respect? Those are proper conversations you have when you're talking about a most important election as this one taking place today, because oftentimes staggered elections are reflections of what happened when we talk about the bigger incidences during election.
All right. I also want you to share, your thoughts on. We've seen a very dramatic build-up, till today. In the last roughly 2 years, there's been so much that has happened. Including with the deputy governor back then, Philip Shaibu, and of course, the politics that has also been played. What exactly are the details concerning these top 3 candidates, that make this election extremely important for Edo people?
Well, in the first place, I have to respect the eventual position of the party and the court. Because don't forget, the court has been involved in this process, and the party, as the only body that can support candidates, has made its decision. But I need to say this, had the process been proper, I do not think those who took the party to court or those who went to court to seek redress would have done so. I do not think anything is very special, other than the fact that each person first meets, in the first place, certain criteria as expected. The first being that they are Edo sons. I'm talking about mainly, you're going to permit me to use the microcosm of the 3 main parties to actually zoom in on other issues here. Okwebolo, Igodalo, you're talking about Akpata. These men, by virtue of what they have been able to do in life, apart from the fact that they are from Edo State, are people who qualify by virtue of age and certain qualifications to participate in the elections. Now, having established that as certain prerequisites that have been met, you also have to look at perhaps certain things that some of them have done within the Nigerian space that you may want to consider as what allows them to understand the template of the Edo people. Of the 3 persons in question, one person that has really held a position that I'll say cover the nook and cranny of this country would be the former NBA president in the person of Akpata. Akpata has, been at the helm of the NBA, and having been there, most definitely, I believe, it's a test of the waters when it comes to administering a national body, especially a body of those that appears to operate on a wavelength of intelligence. If you look at Okwebolo and if you look at Igodalo, by virtue of the things they've done for themselves, I cannot disrespect them and the impact they've had. But when you're talking about the Edo people, you have to understand that you must know the dimensions that actually you find across the 18 local governments in Edo State, for instance. Who are the Onwa people? Who are the Esan people? Who are the Akoko Edo people? Who are the Unememekwas? Who are the Archie people? Because we must remind ourselves here that when we talk about the Fuga people, we talk about those from Urumi, we talk about the people from Edo, oftentimes it is in fact because of the Edo people who are mainly Bini people that they then be state. And oftentimes we think the word Edo is actually applicable when we go into research about other people. There are other tribes across the length and breadth of the heartbeat of the nation. And it is key, therefore, to understand that how have you gauged, for instance, The emotions of Muslim-dominated areas in Edo State. That is one thing. Who are the Fuga people? The Fuga people are fearless, very intelligent. If you go to Okwela, Okwela has a mixture of Muslims and Christians, very handsome people. According to researches, even we find that Okwela men are the most chiseled. I'm just putting that as an aside. Then if you come to Edo North, where Adam Toshomole comes from, who are those people? They are also strong politicians, strong people that have stake in that country. Then what about the Eson people? Now, if you do not understand the dimensions of emotions that come with the identity and expectations of these people, you wouldn't be able to understand. Now, this election, for instance, if anybody has traveled across the length and breadth of Edo State and you decide to go from Benin to Auchi, coming to Akoko Edo area, I can tell you for real that the response that those people will give you to this election will be completely different, because the people along that area essentially have not felt the impact of the leadership of the Obaseki administration. The infrastructure going from South Benin to places like Auchi is actually a death knell. If you move also from Akoko Edo, you go to a place like Igara, for instance, going through Igara to Unememekwa, going to Mongongo, driving through as if you're going to Kogi State, those people also tell you that they've not felt the impact of the governor. But if you come to a place like Benin, you try to go to other neighboring places around that place, then perhaps they'll tell you that, well, the governor has done well. So it tells you that the person who is to take over from Obaseki must accommodate the realities of the shortfalls of the outgoing governor of Edo State and be able to, as much as possible, to rethink leadership. So I will not want to undermine the capacities of anybody in this election, because everybody qualifies, and that is why INEC, as the umpire, eventually gave the sanction that has admitted them as the candidate of the respective party. If you want to look at somebody that is representing another party, I think the person of Sergio Sogun, the 2- or 3-time lawmaker that done phenomenally well by assessment when he was a House of Rep member. As a matter of fact, he was told to continue as a lawmaker. He said no, other people should take over, and that he wants to serve his own people. What will the likes of Sergio Sogun do, the man who understands the dimensions and the in and out of the state? So when you look at these outlines that I've made, the solution to the problem of the Edo people would have to be from somebody who has ideal humanity. And let me say this with every sense of clarity. We've attributed the word leadership to politicians, but I think politicians do not deserve the word leaders. They deserve the word rulers, or they deserve the word those who are there having sought power to occupy offices. Because if you look at what one must ingrain to qualify as a leader, it means that a leader must not only consider the 4-8-year tenure, the leader has to accommodate the realities, the expectations, and the possibilities of those that are unborn. And because leadership itself does not only think about the tenured moment, it thinks about what it is able to do such that it even sires those that take over.
All right, Adeni, thank you so much for that. Would actually have to link up with our correspondent right now. We have Austin Azu waiting for us to give us an update. Austin Azu, if you can hear me, where are you at the moment, and what is the update so far? How has the process been so far, and what update can you give us?
Yes, currently we are at Ward 1, Unit 13, East and Southeast local government area of Edo State, precisely Ewohimi. And you can see that we are using the umbrella here to protect our equipment, but the voters, you can see them queuing up under the rain, so you can see the enthusiasm that they have displayed for them to elect a new governor that will take over from the incumbent governor, Godwin Obaseki. So I will take the camera around so that we'll speak to some of them to share to us what they're expecting. Okay, sir, let's meet you. Your name?
My name is Victor Nifo.
Okay. How is the process going here?
It's fine and clear. There's no problem. We're on the line now. I'm waiting to vote. So that's it. Everything is cool. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Okay, come with me. Okay, let's meet you, sir. Your name and what quality of leadership are you expecting from the next person that will take over as the governor of Edo State?
Anyway, I'm Robinson Ifada Osumbo, the next governor of Edo State. We want him to enlighten everybody. The government, they are operating. Everyone here now, as we are here now, you see everybody now, we are inside the rain. To come and see, say, we vote for the right person where we need. That is why we are here today. That is all the thing. Even if you can even ask for any other pen, this is what they will tell you. You hear?
Okay. Your name again, sir?
Robinson Ifada Osumbo.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sir, bring us to speed. What are the youth expecting from this next administration?
My name is Solomon, Mr. Solomon. So what we need in this area, is this state, is that at least let's empower youth, because youth is the only thing where you will start with. Because when all the youth is working, every family will be happy. So empower youth, put many youth for work, provide work and good road, good resources, water and everything, light. The state will be good, the country will be good, because we will be suffering by bad leaders past how many years now. So we need a good quality leader to lead us the way we want it. That's why everybody come out in mass this afternoon to vote for the right person. So we just need only the right person to sit on the seat.
All right, thank you. Okay, I have another gentleman who will bring us to speed, sir. Please tell us your name. In terms of security, what is your expectation from the next person that will take over from Godwin Obaseki?
Okay, I am Ofojiro, and in terms of security in general, okay, it's everyone business, and we need more security. As it is in Nigeria, there's no security, and it's only God that is protecting us. If you run to police station, no way. If you run to army, no way. We need more security to strategize themselves at different checkpoints, not taking bribe. Let them do their work so that our life and property will be secure. That is what I can say about the security, and any other thing will take place.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. They said without a woman there will be no politics, and we'll have this lady here who will bring us to speed. What are your expectations as a mother from the next administration that will take over from Godwin Obaseki?
What will make us enter field the votes? Because we need better thing for Ebohimi. Ever since Ebohimi never go for governor, I make all of us there here, so that we need somebody who will help us and help our children. Now make us there here, take this field now. That is my own point.
What will be your name?
Rose Atalakpa.
Okay, thank you. All right, from the cross section of respondents we just spoke to, their enthusiasms are quite high despite the slight rain, so they are under the rain to ensure they are able to cast their vote. But they spoke on a wide range of issues, ranging from security, ranging from infrastructure and employment opportunity. And of course, we hope and believe that the next administration that would come after Godwin Obaseki, we consider most of these requests by these voters here at Ewohimi.
Speaking of security, how secure is that particular polling unit? And we've also heard of underage voting from Irua polling station. Can you speak to us about, have there been any reports of underage voting where you are at the moment?
Yes, you can see the policemen, they are all over the place. One of them just stepped out. So just pan your camera to the other side. You can see the police officers are manning the polling units. And we equally have unidentified young men who are still around to ensure they are able to protect the voters and ensure that they secure the ballot as well. So we don't have any security glitches at the moment. So the security personnel are very much on the ground, and everybody are trying to ensure they are able to follow the queue. And you can see that the queue is moving gradually. Everybody that wants to vote already on the queue. So it means that there's orderliness here at this particular Unit 13, Ward 1 in Uwehimi in East and South East local government area of Edo State.
Okay, what about, Austin, if you can hear me, what about underage voting? And, there are reports of underage voting in some polling units already. So we want to know if there's a report of any in your polling units. And also, what about the beavers and other electronic materials? How are they working?
Okay, talking about, let's begin with the beavers, for instance. The beavers, they seem to be working very well from what we have seen so far. Okay, please come along with me. Okay, the beavers seems to be working very well, and we have not had any issue about the beavers. So you can see that a capturing is ongoing, one of the eligible voter. But nevertheless, we have not identified anyone to be like underage in this polling unit. But don't forget to that most of those we call underage, we don't actually know how to determine their age factor. They registered for this process, so the INEC official should have been able to determine if they are underaged or not.
Okay. So, looking at, the process going on, I'm actually tempted to ask how the electoral officials are ensuring vote secrecy, considering the fact that, the rains, are pouring, and also it seems kind of choked up and everyone seems to be running away from the rain.
Pardon, I didn't hear you. Please repeat.
I was talking about how electoral officials are ensuring vote security, considering that it's raining and everyone seems to be running away from the rain. So it seems like, they're in the same place at the same time and not on a queue.
But at this particular polling unit, we have the people on the queue despite the rain is showering, and the INEC officials are actually doing their job. So those who are not on the queue, probably they might have done their voting, or probably it's not yet their turn. So the rain is not quite heavy as it were in the morning. So this will not in any way deter anyone not to be on the queue.
All right. Austin, I think, you will just have to have you continue to monitor the election in that area. If you're also noticing anything that needs our attention, please reach out to us. And, of course, we will share with our viewers this morning. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again. All right. Let's go back to our studio guest now. I mean, it seems to be very peaceful. The initial threats that we heard of, the do-or-die election, and of course, the fears that people had, doesn't seem to be any of that happening today in Edo State. I'm also impressed. First of all, I think I mentioned it earlier, is that 5 million population, 2.2 million people registered to vote, which is pretty impressive. What does that necessarily mean, for whoever it is that would emerge winner?
All right, thank you very much in making sure those statistics were shared, because those statistics are very important for any political gladiator. I'm concerned about the fact that the more people register, the less people vote.
Yeah, at least from 2020.
But I think there's a factor that is at play here. Unlike the previous elections, there were mainly two monopolistic parties. Yeah. So we have a third force. And the third force might drive people who would ordinarily not want to vote to come out and say, okay, so I have another choice. So let me try and go and vote. And that tells a lot about having multi-party processes in Nigeria. We really need to move away from this idea that we're UK, we're British, we're American, where there's two key parties and you are stuck between one or the other. We are as different as there are stars and suns in the heavens. And so we really need to have different parties representing what we believe. And so perhaps one of the reasons we're hoping that despite the rains and the security fears, more people are actually going to come out to vote this time around so that we can reverse this apathy, and then whoever becomes governor would have a proper mandate. So that's very important, in the consideration of the few polling units we have seen.
Yeah.
Again, I will have to say that let us wait until the very end before we say kudos to Anek.
Yeah. One of the things, if you've heard, some of the people who have spoken in favor of Governor, Obaseki, I think, Adeni Kunu was also trying to express that if you go to Edo South, and you ask them, they probably would argue that, yeah, he's done, reasonably well. If you go to Edo North, the conversation might be different. You go to Edo Central, might also be a different conversation. People say that, he built or he has set up 2 refineries. He is, of course, paying the highest minimum wage. There's something called the Digital Library also in Edo State. Would you say that these things are relevant enough or convincing enough, for the average voter in Edo State? Are we at that stage where people can actually see the benefit of a government in their lives directly?
So, politics is not about objectivity. It's about sentiment.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. Our preference for someone is based on what they represent to us or their actions are beneficial to us. So we have quite a lot of leaders who have come up in the political space that spent a lot of resources of the country in making highfalutin, beautiful structures, infrastructures that are used by 0.0001% of the people. So digital library, how many people are going to use it?
Yeah.
All right. There's a superhighway, beautiful, looks good in the sky. How many people are driving? How many roads are motorable? So at the end of the day, when people want to choose, they would choose based on the direct impact of your policies on their lives. It's not going to be based. We have a lot of states where the capital cities are beautiful. Everything else is crap. And so that's the reason why people want local governments to be more active.
Yeah.
So with this, people can get surprised. For example, in Lagos State, if there's a preponderance of infrastructural development in certain areas of the senatorial districts, and other senatorial districts are not popular, not getting the same kind of popular attention. So I think for Governor Obaseki, it should not be easy for us to simply say, having listed out whatever he has spent, several hundreds of billions that has been allocated to him, it's sufficient to say that every one of the 5 million citizens of that state can say he has done well from their own perspective.
Yeah.
People always ask themselves, where were we before you became governor? Where am I now? And that would be a projection as to the future. So if I was doing well before you became governor and I'm not doing well now, it could even be because of the policies of the federal government of Nigeria. But you are the most direct person that will be influenced by my ballot. So I think in a lot of ways, people are going to end up voting based on the direct impact. Now, that is the good scenario. The terrible scenario is that people will suffer and still vote simply because they're voting sentimentally.
Yeah.
They are voting because either the language that the person is speaking, the color of the person, whatever it is in affinity with me. And I think that is where we have the greater problems, because then those kinds of people don't bother trying to do anything when they're in office. They simply believe that people will vote for them for the exact same reason of affinity.
All right, so but what about the younger ones? What do you think, what is it about Olumide Akpata that actually draws the younger ones or appeals to the younger generation?
Are people drawn to Olumide because of his party? Because the party has become popular? So could you have put
party?
No, could you have put a monkey on a suit and under the tag of Labour Party, and people say that's Labour, so that's Labour, that's Labour. So we really don't know yet. We don't know if people are supporting him because of his own personal antecedents or because of the resurgence of the party at the national level. So those are things that we need to look at across the entire country. So the Obi factor has influenced a lot of voters' direction.
Yeah.
And so people are voting sentimentally because of a connection with Obi. So they believe that whoever is on that platform has the same personality type, the same antecedents, the same ideology as the presumed leader of the party right now in the party culture. And so they will support, from that point of view. So we really don't know yet. But we know that on a personal level, being an MBA, former MBA president, we can assume that he's somebody who is highly intellectual, who can then therefore deliver when he gets into power. But one of the things that the gentleman spoke about is that the structures of government are such that even with your transformational ideology, you may find it difficult if the civil service is not created in the image and likeness of your ideas.
Yeah.
So you will find it difficult to actually influence, some of the things. We know, for example, that when Muhammadu Buhari became president, our expectation was that he was going to be a security president. Security and transparency and corruption will go down. But we know that when he left, security issues went up, transparency went down, corruption went up, because we got all the reports from the international organizations. So the key thing was that he would tell you that trying to govern in a democratic system where you need all your policies approved by the National Assembly, you need the civil service to drive and implement all your ideas, and they're not doing so. It comes back and hurts you.
Yeah.
Let's give a classic example, something that News Central has yet to put attention on: sports. Because you mentioned sports, so I will mention sports. So the president gives 12 billion. In his own mind, it's a major investment. I put down 12 billion. But who is going to use it? The civil servants who you did not teach how to manage resources. The people that you did not prepare 4 years before in anticipation of an Olympics that's going to come 4 years later. You're giving 12 billion now, but you didn't give them when they first started.
Yeah.
This is what I mean by structures. The structures of government makes it difficult even for the best of minds to fulfill some of the things that we expect from them. So it's something we need to do together. As we're bringing new people, we also need to change our systems. And we need to improve on it and keep improving until we get to where we're headed.
All right, just to, I think for clarity, I think I may have shared the wrong figures earlier. The registered voters for Edo North apparently seem to be 620,000 plus, Edo South 1.5 million, and Edo Central, which is the lowest for now, was at when INEC put out the figures, 400,000. So Edo Central apparently has the lowest figures, and that's where it was said that the next governor should come from. They have the lowest number of registered voters. So I'm not sure if they will be able to pull it off or not. But we'll see. At the end of today and going forward, we still have Adeni Kunu with us. Mr. Kunu, let's speak a little bit more about the external factors. External factors, which are the interest that other people have in the Edo State elections. Because if you look at the build-up, there was so much energy in Edo State. I don't know that Ondo State elections will be, as heightened as Edo State elections were. Former Governor Adams Oshiomhole, campaigning for his candidate. The presidency putting out a publication on the presidential Twitter handle, campaigning for Monday Okpebholo. That's to show you how important it is to them. For the PDP side, it is Aswe Godalo, of course, being backed fully by Godwin Obaseki, who has had his issues with Adams Oshiomhole, has his issues with Nyesom Wike. He's seemingly fighting for his own political life as well, post this election. So there's so much of these external forces that are, relevant in the discussion today. Tell me how they would influence what happens today, what relevance they have, and why they are so tensed about who wins the election in Edo State.
Usually happens to an individual. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
All right, when we talk about retrospection, I said it's a very good teacher in terms of what eventually happens to you. Let me remind us that the APC undermined the capacity of the incumbent governor in a bid for him to get re-elected to office. And the Edo people demonstrated that they have independent minds. And that's what brought about the phrase, Edo no be Lagos, if you remember that very well.
Yes, very well.
It became a cliche after the current president, before he came into office, spoke on a televised program condemning, obviously, Obaseki for not aligning with the party or being somebody that will listen to the supposed political godfather of Edo State in the person of Adams Oshiomhole. Now, it is obvious to the APC that the PDP cannot be undermined as far as Edo State is concerned. And it's also obvious to them that whoever they put out, particularly to represent them, will need all the backing in the world. Because we saw what happens to the candidate they put out, who real-time saw how we lost when INEC put out the figures there for everybody to see, particularly when they started using the beaver. Don't forget that Edo State actually premiered the use of that beavers, as it were, and when they talk about supposedly making elections transparent. Now, the picture or the question you have asked regarding how important is that it is very, very important for the presidential Twitter handle to have the candidate. It tells you a whole lot about the need for people to start coming to terms with the power of the electorate and the possibility of their losing an election or winning it if they also undermine the unknown capacity of the people. And that's actually what is going on as far as Edo State is concerned. There cannot be lethargy, or there's nothing that will make anybody think that, well, as far as we are concerned, APC's Okpebolo will just come in there and ride roughshod. Don't forget, incumbency is a key instrument of consideration in global electioneering. The person in office has to a great extent understand the machinery of that state, and to a great extent also understand the influence that he has over those there. So there may be obvious dissatisfactions, but to a great extent, the machinery is controlled by the incumbent. It is therefore important to bring the weight at the federal level to be able to at least give a lot of opportunities to the person there. But even at that, have you looked at where Aso Ighodalo and the person of Monday Okpebolo comes from? Both of them they came from an area that is away. For instance, you're talking about Edo Central Senatorial District where Okpebolo comes from. Then you want to talk about Esa Southeast where the person of Ighodalo comes from. The picture created is they deliberately went to these areas. Now your correspondent was speaking for Ewoimi earlier. That is a very strategic place, and you heard what the woman that was interviewed talked about. So you cannot take away the fact that the people in office understand who or what could become their lot. And you also want to talk about Aso Ighodalo, who worked with the previous administration, who had worked with Adam Soshomole, and now also with Governor Obaseki. So you are talking about the experience that it brings to bear. So you cannot undermine those things. But if you look at it again, the people of Edo State will be a key instrument or a key factor in actually giving advantage to any of the parties. Earlier, your female anchor was talking about what is it about Olumide Akpata. Well, there was a statement made with regard to his demography and the fact that the baggage associated with the two political parties there appears to be absent as far as the Labour Party is concerned in, of course, Edo State. Then there's also the factor of excitement. When a new bride comes in, before anybody experiences the juice of the new bride, you see the new bride as something that gives you different things. So Olumide Akpata and the Labour Party appears to be the new bride. The APC and the PDP appear to be the old wives in the home who are experienced. But there's this tingling excitement about the new bride. And especially when the new bride comes with some kind of curves that make the people, now I'm speaking connotatively and, you know, with symbolism for the betterment of any other watchers. So I need to say here that this election is an election that is very open. And I can tell you that it is not even a guarantee for the PDP or for the APC. It is as much not a guarantee for the Labour Party. The reason being that they will do, there's going to be an addition and subtraction factors. If you look at Obaseki, for instance, what are the things he said? Your guest in the studio says something very, very important. He talked about the development in the city center. So if you go to Benin, you'd find out that there are lots of edifices that give you the impression. But that, of course, is the area where the governor comes from. What has the governor done in Edo South? What has he done in Edo North? What has he done in the eastern part of Edo State? These are the questions. Let me even tell you one of the things the governor did. Before the election of today, he now started visiting places that he never visited. He visited a place called Igara, Akoko Edo, or arguably the oldest local government. You need to go to that local government and see the level of neglect. Yeah. When a place holds the history of your own state, you need to preserve it and not make it a relic of a gone civilization. He went to Igara, he promised them a particular school of business management, and I can tell you that the governor hadn't visited that particular place in a long time. Now, if you're talking about one of the major festivals that are known across the globe. It is normally something they hold every 7 years in Igara. They held the last one, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. The governor sent a representative. Now, what I'm bringing out is there are places you need to understand hold pivotal positions in your state. So we're simply talking about people here. So the side that they see of the governor is going to be the side that the people will look at. For instance, if I'm looking forward, I'm not going to be able to see my left or right side because my eyes per time can only look in a direction. But there are 3 other directions, my left, my right, and my back. And that is actually what it is. That this election, the governor may be looking at the city centers, but people will be looking at other areas that perhaps he did not see for reasons best known to him, or areas he did not look at for reasons also best known to him, and this will impact on how people actually give their votes in this election. But ultimately, is the fact that the Edo people must be the deciding factor in this election. And I'm happy that so far the feelers from what we have in Edo State have not actually shown that there is any kind of untoward thing being done by some people, especially in the majority. So I think that so far we have to look at it. Then we switch gears. The guest in the studio talked about the civil service. Let me tell you one of the things we don't understand. The civil service remains a very important factor in the development of every state. But you see, the civil service must be reacculturated into understand that they hold a pivotal position in bringing to life the plans and policies of the government. Let me tell you people this before I got into the private sector. I had worked with the federal government before for many years. With every sense of humility, I got to awards. And I can say firsthand that for some of us who won awards while we were working with the federal government of Nigeria, we understood the importance of what it means to be a representative of the government, because you are an immediate reference to the government that you represent. And that is what has not been driven into the minds or the consciousness of the people who are there. I know a very good number of people that are working with the Edo State government. And at times when we make conversations, their own ideology about even going to work every day, Monday to Friday, is completely different from the things that we see government talk about.
But this is not peculiar to Edo State, is it?
You said what?
This is not, peculiar to Edo State alone. This sounds like the civil service across Nigeria.
That is true. And it is why you cannot say you give as much as maybe 12 billion or 12 million to anybody without first of all making them understand the importance of the money you are doling out. And that is why we talk about training and retraining of the people who are on the employ of the civil service. Let me tell you this. One of the key solutions of the problems that we find across the country is that the civil service of the state or the nation have people who think that they do use certain privileges when you go to offices. Let me tell you, if you look at the services rendered here, let me just give you an instance. The post office of the United States, because that's where I'm speaking from now, oftentimes compete favorably when it comes to delivering any mail to any part of the United States, and you don't have to blink an eye regarding your mail. 9 posts in Nigeria still exist, but I can tell you that a lot of people may not even feel comfortable sending their mail to 9 posts because you do not have most of those mails delivered to your address because there are no proper addresses even in Nigeria. Now, I'm saying here because we need to understand. Let's look at hospitals, for instance. You go to hospitals at times and you find out that the people who should attend to you, from the person who is the front desk officer to the laboratory technician that will attend to you, to the nurse that is supposed to give you care, they do not even understand that communication is part of what enhances recuperation. You are practically denigrated in many of the public hospitals because these people do not even understand what it means. Even if there are no Hippocratic oath taken by nurses or laboratory technicians, the rudiments of actually medical practice is lost on them. So I'm simply saying here that whoever comes into this office after Obaseki must do a deliberate overhauling. Let me tell you this again. The Lagos State government has approximately about 50,000 people that are working in its service. And for those who do not know, what it created was, it created a platform where every worker in Lagos is onboarded and you can actually take online courses. Now that to me is not enough. You have to ensure that the permanent secretaries of each ministries time and again are able to meet with directors, deputy directors, assistant directors, general managers and managers who at the same time, at least once every 2 months, are able to meet with those that are supervisors and head of respective departments and drive home consistently. Let me tell you this. Those who are researchers have told us that for something to be ingrained, you need to say it about 1,000 times.
Yeah.
The consistency of meeting with those who work in the state civil service cannot be overemphasized. And if you want to see every government deliver on its terms of reference to the people, it has to be a consistency of meeting so that people can understand what is expected. Let me even tell you, I know you must have heard this, where people say, we want to take employment in government so that we can actually have time for our businesses. That is a most unacceptable expression. And that is why government itself must understand what it means to properly pay people their salaries so that the people who oftentimes get employed in government services will not begin to think of alternative sources of income so that they can give the best of themselves to the previous service of the state. In UK, as well as in the US and other developing countries, oftentimes people die practically to work in government because it's a thing of honor. The same thing that you have whenever people actually serve as people who have become veterans, having served as those that are part of the country's military service. It's always something they see as honorable. How much of that consciousness or conscientization do people have in Nigeria? They only have stories of unpaid gratuities, unpaid pension. My father worked in civil service. He died being owed by this government. My mother also lent her service. If I was a very wicked human being, I would have perhaps have got into government and actually taken my share because they didn't do well to my parents. So these kind of things continue to breed the malfeasance and corruption we have, such that every government fails because those that are the extension of the executive arm, which are those on the employ of the state civil service or the federal civil service, do not understand. Just look at, if you do a comparative analysis of the corruption that has happened within the state civil services and the federal services, it is much more than what individuals have taken from government because they believe that working for government is an automatic ticket to stealing because accountability has gone with the winds.
Mr. Kono,
So
it's pretty clear.
Yes, please,
yeah, it's pretty clear, you know, that the civil service across Nigeria, you know, needs, you know, complete cleansing. But of course, you know, it should start from the top. It should start from, you know, building stronger institutions, even if these institutions are still going to be run by, you know, same individuals, you know. But, you know, it's clear that, you know, there's so much, you know, that we lack, you know, with regards, you know, the strength of the civil service and the purity that should exist in the civil service.
Okay. You permit me. Okay. You want? Can I say something, please?
Yeah, quickly.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, quickly.
Thank you very much. I want to tell you that every governor that occupies an office must understand that if you talk about a functional and efficient civil service, it comes with understanding the importance of the civil service. Governor Obaseki has been away across the world doing his own private businesses. If you look at the people that are going to be part of this election, many of them have actually operated within the private sector. They've done well for themselves. I will not undermine their achievement. But there are times somebody who understands the civil service and understands how to create systems that work and demands commitment from the people that are employed by government should at times take that particular position, because people who come from the private sector will suddenly believe that the ideas of the private sector can just be lauded over those in the civil service. You need to understand the emotions, the temperament, and the efficiency models of the civil service, or else we're going to go back. And at times it's a very negative deja vu. Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. I mean, obviously, you know, like we always would say, you know, there's so much, so much, you know, that we lack with regards the way that things should actually, be if we want to have a progressive country, or even on the state level, or even local government level, even if we're not going federal. There's so much, but will we have the type of governance in Edo State that understands these things that you've mentioned? Do we have persons running for elections in Edo State that understand these things? Or do we once again just have persons who are simply trying to grab power and, access to resources? The people of Edo State, of course, have a decision to make that will determine the trajectory of the state for the next 4 years, if not the next 8 years. And so, as we continue to, express these things, we're hoping that the people are able to make the best decision for themselves. I asked the question about the external influences, because it's very important to know those who are behind that candidate that you are pushing. Those who are behind that, candidate that, seems to be representing that party. But there's a lot of external influences that are relevant here. We've seen reports, this morning of some violence. I think we hope that we can share that on our screens in a bit. There's a report of some violence in some parts of the state, that we would be telling you about. We also have our reporters who are on ground in Edo State, across the state this morning, bringing us live feed from the Edo State elections. On the average, it sounds or it looks like it has been a very, very peaceful election process today compared to previous elections that we've had in Edo State. Let's bring back our studio guest, Mr. George Ashiru. The other candidates in the Edo State elections, I think we should ask for forgiveness. We've barely spoken about them. There's one female candidate, in the Edo State election, 17 candidates. But what is the relevance of these 14 others?
What do you mean relevant?
So the relevance in the electoral conversation, the relevance in the process.
So what has happened is that because of the way we play politics here, it's the parties that spend the most money that get the best attention.
Yeah.
So it does not in any way affect the relevance of every voice that is on the ballots. And that's why it's important for the media itself to follow through with the electoral guidelines that say that you must give every party equal attention. True. I mean, I'm thankful for the fact that you are giving my party the attention here. So you are practicing that. A lot of these individuals are, if you look at their profiles, some of them are highly qualified individuals. A lot of them are people that probably have fantastic ideas. And they don't have the resources to buy airtime and advertise and go around the state. But they represent not just a party, they represent a people. And therefore, I think for a diverse nation like ours, we should never be a one-party system. We should not even be a dual-party system. We should be a multi-party democracy, because all the 260 million Nigerians and over 300 tribes and languages need some form of representation in terms of what is important in their areas. Yeah. And more importantly also, I've noticed that most of the parties we're having are duplicating each other's policies. They're saying the same exact things. They are like clones. Yeah. If you look at the various websites where they exist and you read up what is there, it's just changes in phraseology. So I think, again, it goes back to what I said about we are just practicing our democracy right now. Some of these parties are new parties, just got registered, so they are still developing their ideologies, their philosophies, who they are. So they are all very important. We should never, ever, ever, ever suggest that any nation, especially a diverse nation as ours, should have just a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 key parties. In a conversation I had with one of our candidates in our party, and they were discussing about whether there's a merger and necessity for a merger. I said, what you're going to do is to drown the voice of the people that feel that they want to be heard. For example, there are people from the north, from Plateau State. Yeah. They have a very unique experience they want to share. And that experience is not duplicated anywhere else in Nigeria. Yeah. There are people in Bayelsa State. They're experiencing something in Bayelsa State that is unique to them. They're just there. There's no other part of Nigeria that is expressing it. So if there's no party willing to take it as their first and most priority messaging, it gets drowned out with a plethora of messages in the bigger parties.
Yeah.
So that's the reason these parties are very important. And that's also the reason why debates are very important. Debates allows everybody to have an opportunity to sell.
Unfortunately, we didn't have any debates, with this election.
So that, and that again tells you a lot about the weakness of our kind of democracy, because there's no institution that has found it necessary to create those kinds of platforms.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of some of these parties, at the height of permutations during the rally, we saw that 9 political parties actually, joined the APC. Could you tell us, what the effect of these 9 political parties joining the APC would be on, electoral competitiveness?
It happened in Lagos in the last election, made very little impact. The reason I say that is that the only time that kind of collaboration works is if you already have a large party structure. It doesn't matter how big it is. Or you have a lot of people who are interested in your kind of politics. Or you have a candidate that is a good sell. And so that candidate's endorsement will make a difference to your platform. And I think what has happened, like the experience I'm sharing in Lagos, is that a lot of parties just are parties by name. They carry no ideology. They don't have good candidates. And I'm sorry to say, it is easy for them, therefore, not to be competitive and not want to contest elections and simply go and sell to another party, their own mandate. During the last election, my governorship candidate, for example, went out there and sold his ideology and the party. And I know some parties who called me and said, why, you guys don't have a path to victory. We are already here. We have more money than you. We have this. So why don't you endorse us? And, it kept coming. And I said to them, we are not contesting for the sake of just that ticket. We are contesting to have a voice for those who decide to want to support this party, that they want to hear what we have to say. And that's why we are consistent even afterwards in repeating that message. And I think if, therefore, I or anyone else had gone and endorsed, it would not have made more than 5,000, 2,000, 3,000 extra votes when we're discussing about 1 million plus votes. So, and it also does one thing. It kills out forever whatever message you have in the future. People are going to look at your party and say, oh, well, we know that you already endorsed the policies of the ruling party or that particular party. So what new things do you have to share with us? So I don't think it will make a big difference. Like I said, I had to make use of the example of what I experienced in Lagos. It might make a difference in selling the idea that you are the most preferred candidate of the big candidates. You are more preferred by other political parties. To that extent, yes, for those undecided voters. But we don't have undecided voters in Nigerian politics anymore. A lot of people have made up their minds based on the sentiments we discussed about before, tribe, name, where you come from, or the political party their families have always supported, or their Oba say they should support, or whatever. So we've not yet moved to that level in our development as in a social system where people are able to think on their own for themselves and say, this is the direction I want to go, and that's it.
Yeah, all right. Mr. Kunu, quickly share, I'm not sure how, much you know about Edo State proper, and of course, the South, but, tell us about what, a prosperous Edo State means for the region, the South region, in general. What does a prosperous Edo State? Because in the 90s, there's almost no conversation that you would have, with regards even marketing, that Edo State won't be mentioned. It would be Lagos, Abuja, Edo State, then maybe, Rivers. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. So, how relevant is a prosperous Edo State for the region? And how much better can Edo State really be with agriculture, with industrialization, in its ability to generate higher internally generated revenue and the like? So why I'm asking that is because I want us to know what new standards we're using to rate the performance of Gordon Obaseki.
To put it out to you that if we never had Edo State, we would never have had Delta State. Those were together, according to Nigeria's history, until we had the creation of course, Delta State which is of course there. Edo State also holds a pivotal place in history as the only, let me say, the only place that would have actually decided and gone and become an independent part of Nigeria, according to documented history, when a referendum was held at some point. So the creation of Delta State and even Edo State itself is actually something that we find pretty interesting. Now, if you look at the Edo people, one of the resources that the state has will be the people of Edo State itself, and the fact that in virtually all walks of life, you can definitely find an Edo man there. There's this consciousness of the Edo people regarding being progressive in their ideologies. When you talk about maybe individual lifestyle, or you talk about the impact they've been able to make even outside of the country. Don't forget, the state was founded August of 1991, and it has remained as it is. Now, when you look at Edo State in the light of what I've talked about, you look at the fact that Edo State is also undoubtedly one of the oil-producing states in the country. If we move away from the human resources that Edo State has, then you have to go to that aspect of Edo State that talks about the fact that it has oil amongst the Niger Delta State. And one thing that has not worked well for the Edo people is the fact that it doesn't appear to me that even the governors who sit there understand that the natural resources that it has is enough for them to actually do much more than they are doing at the moment. So when you talk about Edo, you look at the people. You talk about the what? The natural resources, of which is, of course, crude. If you move away from there, then you begin to talk about other mineral resources that you have, as far as that state is concerned, which will also have added. So when you look at the human and the natural resources, a combination of what the state has should have been enough. When you're talking about Edo State, don't forget also that it ranks about 10 out of 36 states. That talks about the land, and that talks about many other things. So when you look at that state, it is key, therefore, for the person who occupies the office to begin to understand that these are qualities that cannot be divorced from the realities of a state that I have the privilege of rulership over. And as a result of that, how much do I actually have to do to ensure that both human and natural resources are harnessed? Excuse me, there are lots of places in Edo State that have been left out of the development of that state. And it is therefore important for the government to understand that even in terms of, what is it called? In terms of tourism, Edo State has the potential to be a huge tourist attraction. It is very, very key. I was talking earlier about the mineral resources in Edo State. There are lots of things there. Edo State has bitumen, it has clay, it has dolomite. Edo State has phosphate, it has glass sand, it has gold, it has gypsum. Iron ore is in Edo State. Lignite is there, limestone is there, marble is there. In fact, all of these things are there in abundant quality before you even talk about oil and gas. So how can you have nothing less than 10 mineral resources in your state, and yet you are more or less not demonstrating that you have the capacity to take people out of poverty? Because it is very, very key. You cannot look at the people of Edo State that, okay, for instance, we're talking about tourist attraction. Tourist attraction will include the Emoto statue in Benin. That alone can generate some sizable amount of money, even for the people of Edo State, every year. You talk about the Ise Lake. You talk about the River Niger Beach, the one that you find in Agenebude. You talk about Mike Haigbe Square that you find in Fuga, Ambrose Ali Square you find in Ekoma. You look at all of these places, it will only be that the person who is there as governor is able to harness these potentialities of the state for the betterment of the state. You cannot take away all of these things. You have to understand that this thing is very key. So when you look at the qualities that I've talked about here, you should be able to develop. Don't also forget that there's a particular minus when we talk about Edo State, and that has to do with human trafficking. Human trafficking. The rate of human trafficking in Edo State is actually something that we've talked about many times, especially when we talk about girls that are into sex work outside of the state, especially when you go to a place like Europe. I interviewed somebody years ago, and he told me about a young lady that returned from Russia who happens to be from Edo State, that had to pay 40,000 40,000 euros or $40,000. I'm trying to remember the currency now, but it was in Europe, in Russia. The person prostituted. You cannot have this kind of potential that I've listed as something in Edo State, and you have people in that state go out to do such a thing because many of them believe that the state doesn't hold a lot of them. Okay, let's look at another quality. Edo State has, and I'm going to list briefly as we talk, Ambrosali University, that's in Ekoma, and Aochi Polytechnic are two higher institutions that even many people who are not from that region have had the privilege of attending because of the history it holds. You have the Benson Dausa University, for instance, the College of Agriculture that you find in Igoraki. You have the Edo State Polytechnic in Usen. You have the College of Education in Ekadolo. You have this institution as part of what the state holds. We should be enabled to revamp the mind of the people of this state. I'm simply saying all of this because it is key to look at the areas of strength of a state and how much this state can actually be able to take care of. Now, let's look again about healthcare. Edo State, as we speak, has certain general hospitals across the state.
Yes.
But don't ask questions about those general hospitals because the state is another questionable thing. So when you look at Edo State holds a pivotal place in the history of this country. And you cannot but respect the fact that this state in question, has a lot it has offered the country according to political history. And it is therefore key for them to even know their history so that they will not abuse it. They said when the worth of a thing is not known, abuse becomes inevitable. And there is no election, let me put it forth and straight to you, there is no election that can actually be won by any major political party in this country without the input of Edo State. So you have to look at the areas of strength. And now the people should begin to allow themselves see that we are a people of reckon. And because we're a people of reckon, you cannot take us out of the picture because we have capacities both in human and natural resources. So if you look at all that I've listed, Edo State is a very, very important state as far as Nigeria is concerned. And until the people come to terms with that reality, it may be something unchanged that we do not want to see.
And it really is. I mean, if you also would judge, the governorships that have, emerged in Edo State since 1999, it's not going to be a difficult argument to say that governorship has seemingly failed in Edo State. There's been one or two here or there, that have maybe brought some level of hope, but since the days of Ambrosali, I'm not sure that there's been anything that anybody in Edo State can point to and say that this has been a very progressive government in the state. Adams Oshiomhole came with a lot of hope after Osumbo's election was annulled. He came with a lot of hope, and a lot of people in Edo State were leaning on to his days as the NLC chairman, and seeing that, or hoping rather, that he will be the one to bring huge amounts of development to Edo State, and move the state forward. But it's not so much, and our understanding, our rating of what development is in a state, it's most times never more than road infrastructure, and maybe a few bridges here and there. So it has been mostly disappointing, to some extent. But we would get you to speak a little bit more about it. Let's go back to Austin Azu, who is still in Edo State this morning to share with us, or this afternoon now, to share with us, what the live updates are over there. Austin, can you hear us? Please go ahead.
Yeah. I can hear you. Good afternoon. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Kindly go ahead. Give us live updates. What has happened in your location since last time we spoke?
Okay, currently we are at East and West local government area of Edo State, and currently at Ward 4, Unit Ward 1, Unit 4. And behind us, you can see that the ballot is almost filled up, and it means that they have been here for a quite long time, and they have been, casting their votes. But meanwhile, we'll have some persons here to share more light on what has transpired here so far. Okay, let's meet you, sir. Tell us your name and tell us the voting process so far. Look at the camera, sir.
Okay. My name is Pama Monday from Yekaki Upogogwa, the Apostolic Unit, which is Unit 4 in East and West local government Ward 1.
Okay, tell us, how was the process like?
We thank God during the process there was no problem. Everywhere be peaceful. The vote go on well, smoothly, 1-to-1, brotherly and sisterly, as God is wish.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have, please tell us your name and what you represent. You are one of the polling agents here. Okay, tell us your name.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Osaro Saturday, the polling agent at Unit 4, Ward 1. The vote, we vote here. As you see it, is a peaceful vote. No fight, no trouble. Now we are about to begin count now as the vote. That is my own. Thanks, sir.
Did you observe anything about the beavers? Was there any issue with the beavers?
No. The vote was peaceful, no fight, no trouble.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, sir, bring us to speed. What are your expectations from this, the next administration that will take over from Godwin Obaseki in terms of the youth? What are you expecting?
We're actually looking forward to a more developmental stride in our state, because Edo State is a peculiar state in Nigeria. And this election will further shaping the status of the youth in the society. And as such, we are looking forward to the next governor who will move the state forward beyond this. And so far, the election has been very peaceful and quiet. The INEC officials actually arrived early as scheduled, and we started about 8:45, and we are almost done with the voting now. And it has been peaceful, quiet, and transparent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have heard it from some of these voters here. They actually said that they were here quite early, and the officials are equally quite here on time, and there was no issue of violence in this polling unit. So hope that very soon they will start sorting the ballot box, and the counting will begin from this particular polling unit, and the results will be announced by the INEC official.
All right, Austin. Now we hear that, there have been reports of vote buying in some of the local government, some of the polling units, and some voters were allegedly engaged in vote buying and picked up by the EFCC officials at Ward 7, Ego local government area. And also, some reports of pockets of violence as well at Unit 21, Ward 7 in Ego, where INEC materials were actually destroyed and officials were attacked. And there was also a report of destruction of voting booth. Do you have an idea, as to some of these incidences?
Yes, for now, we gather that the security agencies have been able to restore normalcy to those particular areas you just mentioned, particularly Ego local government area. The result, the information from that area at this point in time, earlier on seems to be very tense, but the security agencies have to move into it, and they have to, ensure that normalcy returns, and voting is ongoing across the wards in that local government area. Of course, earlier in the morning, we saw that those who were involved in the vote buying were picked up by the EFCC, and actually some altercation came on board, but the security agencies have to come in and ensure that they are able to calm the situation. This EFCC were weeks away, and that's what we can confirm for you to that extent. But for other violent area, precisely Ward 4 and Unit 7, where you had the issue of violence, I think they have started voting again, and nobody knows when the voting will end, but security agencies are very much pretty on the ground to ensure that no more violence in that particular ward and unit.
Well, thank you so much, Austin, for that. Just when we were celebrating the calm and, peaceful process, we see this happening.
Well, I mean, George Ashiru had said earlier, that violence normally comes much later, when one party maybe, sees that it might be losing. That's when the violence kicks in, but we're happy, at least with the presence of the security agents. And of course, with reports of the EFCC picking up people who, were accused or alleged to be vote buying or attempting to vote, to buy or sell votes. It has been seemingly peaceful. There have been skirmishes here or there, but as of right now,
that way as well.
Yes, as of right now, just 2:20 to 2:21 p.m., it has been a pretty peaceful election in Edo State. We have our next IT expert, Perpetual Fasomi Peters, who's going to be joining us next to share with us, more analytics from the Edo State elections. Good afternoon, Perpetual.
Good afternoon to you. I'm not an IT expert. Okay, so let's put that first. How are you doing, Dashan? Good to have you today.
I'm very well, thank you, Petra.
All right, so we'll be looking at some of the trends that have shaped voting in Edo State. Now, as voting kicks off in Edo State today for the election of a new governor, the question is, who will succeed the incumbent governor, Godwin Obaseki? Now, with 2 million registered voters spread across 4,519 polling units from 18 local government areas, what should we expect? We'll need to take a trip down memory lane to previous elections in the state. For the 2020 election, it was significant, and understanding its trends and factors can help us grasp what might influence this election. Now, one of the first things I'll say is Edo South's power of numbers. Now, going by the last 3 governorship elections cast in Edo State, it shows that Edo South holds 48.56% of the votes on the average. Now, let's take a look at the gubernatorial election in 2016. If we can have the gubernatorial election in 2016. That's the slide that talks about what happened in 2016. There we are going to see the numbers and see the region that took the highest number. And of course, Edo South happens to be that region. Let's have that slide on gubernatorial election 2016. So for 2016 gubernatorial election, we're seeing Edo North right here. For Edo North, it gave us 32.23% of the votes. And then for Edo Central, it gave us 19.4% of the votes. And Edo South gave us 48.37% of the votes. That gives you a picture of the number that usually comes from this particular place. And then another thing, when you also take a look at it, you're going to see that Edo North gave its vote to APC, and Edo Central gave its vote to PDP, while this particular one, that's Edo South, gave its own vote. Edo South gave its own vote to this particular party, of course, which is APC also. Here you have the total. Now, let's move on. Apart from this particular one, there is another thing we're also going to be looking at right now, and that is the power of incumbency. But before we come to the power of incumbency, let's take a look at the next one, which is the 2020 gubernatorial election. For the 2020 gubernatorial election, we're seeing 35.5% coming from Edo North, 18% coming from Edo Central, and 46.5% coming from Edo South. Again, we're seeing Edo South deciding who becomes the governor of the state. Now, let's take a look at the 2023 presidential election. For 2023 presidential election, we're seeing the same thing, Edo North, Edo Central, and Edo South. Again, we're seeing Edo South giving us that number, giving us that winner with 50.26% to the 2023 senatorial election again. For the senatorial election, we're seeing the same trend. Edo South, again, doing what it has been doing since 2016, giving us that deciding factor, giving us that number with 50.83%. We have Edo Central, 17.56%, and we have Edo North, 31.6%. That tells you that to a very large extent, Edo South has that power of number. Edo Central has the least number, and Edo North is the second. Now, away from the, let's look at something. That is Edo South being the swing vote hub. Now, while Edo North and Edo Central are traditionally known for voting certain candidates, when you talk about Edo North would always want to vote for APC. Edo Central would always want to vote for PDP. But when you come to Edo South, there is that divergence. There is that, sophistication that comes with Edo South. Let's go back to the 2016 gubernatorial election, please. We're using the same slides for the two, this 2016 gubernatorial election. Now for the 2016, I'm going to take that again. Remember Edo North, I told you Edo North would always go for APC. So let's keep counting. APC for Edo North. Edo Central gave its votes to PDP in 2016 gubernatorial election. But for Edo South gave its own vote to APC. Now let's take a look at 2020 gubernatorial election. For the 2020, Edo North again gave its vote to APC. This is the second one, and we still have Edo North giving its vote to APC. And for Edo Central, this time around, it gave its vote to PDP. The same PDP, the second time, it's giving it to PDP. But here, for Edo South, this time around, it's giving it to another party, and that party is the PDP. That's in the 2020 gubernatorial election. That's some sophistication you're beginning to see also from Edo South. Now, let's take a look at the presidential election that took place last year, 2023. For 2023, Edo North continues to vote for APC. 2023 presidential election, we're beginning to see some level of sophistication right here, and that's because we're having a new entrant, and that new entrant is the Labour Party. Labour Party made inroads into Edo State and some of the South and Southeast states during the 2023 presidential election, and we are seeing that's beginning to probably shape what we would see today in Edo State election. So, for 2023, we saw Edo Central, going for Labour Party. Some sophistication, moving away from always voting for PDP at this time. Then for Edo South gave its vote to Labour Party this time around. Labour Party, of course, made inroads into Edo South. Now, bear in mind that Edo South, the incumbent governor is from Edo South. So Edo South could have decided to vote because of its own. That's the incumbent governor. But instead, he decided to vote for Labour Party at the presidential election. That's sophistication right there. Now, let's take another look at the other one, which is the senatorial election in 2023. For the senatorial election, Edo North, again, APC. Recall that since 2016, Edo North has been voting one party, APC. And now for Edo Central at this point in time voted for APC again. Of course, that's telling you that Edo Central is becoming very, very dynamic. It's becoming very, very sophisticated. It's no longer playing, religious, not necessarily religious. It's no longer doing, voting based on ethnicity or language or tribe or what have you. There is some level of sophistication. And then for Edo South, this particular one, and for this particular one, that is Edo South. For Edo South, we're seeing Edo South, of course, voting for Labour Party again. Now, this tells you something. We're seeing that to a very large extent, we're seeing a lot of sophistication right here for Edo South and, of course, for Edo Central. So the question you're going to say is that beyond these two, what other factors are prevalent today? And if you ask me, I'll say that to a very large extent, Edo South actually probably holds the key. But let's take a look at this here. For Edo South, we have a situation where Edo South has been in governance for 8 years. Edo North has been in government for 16 years, but Edo Central has not. Now, capitalizing on this, we're seeing that the two big political parties decided to take their own candidates from Edo North. From Edo Central, beg your pardon. From Edo Central. Now, what did Labour Party do? Labour Party decided to go with Edo South. Remember that Edo South is sophisticated. Edo South would rather go for a candidate based on its pedigree rather than voting for someone who is from their own clan. So the question now is, what is going to happen now? Who is going to win? It's really, really sophisticated, and I must say that so many factors will come to play in deciding, who is going to win, because there are so many factors to be looked at. Whether it is the fact that, the other two candidates decided to go to Edo Central, playing to, that particular marginalization conversation around the fact that Edo Central hasn't had it in the Fourth Republic. So let's take these two people. But then Edo Central is sophisticated. So when there are two people coming from the same place, you're asking yourself, who then are they going to vote for? And you also have Edo South with the number equally sophisticated. I think I would really like to engage our guest here, George, because, you've been saying a whole lot about this. Let me get your thoughts on this particular one.
Well, senatorial election results, as I shared, presidential election results, buttress what I said earlier, that we're no longer running a two-party race in Edo State. And the presence of a third behemoth, big party, has changed the fortunes of the elections of the state. It's brought more people out. Apathy that will have been part of the reason why the voter turnout was less 4 years ago is going to be a little bit different now because of the entrance of Labour Party. However, that doesn't mean one is projecting. So nobody should come and say George Ashuru from Lagos began to make predictions. But what it tells us is that every time a transformational party comes up or a candidate comes up, there are a group of people who don't vote, who will decide to vote. So that's good for our democracy, that the more parties we have, the chances are there that one party is speaking a language of people who usually sit at home. So the trajectory is fantastic. And I like the fact that the senatorial districts are also telling us a very important history. And that is this, the so-called sophisticated senatorial district, it may have people of a certain economic class, which need to investigate that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and that's actually the reality. So Edo South, is where, has Oredo and the likes. That's where, the universities, the University of Benin is, and, a couple of other higher institutions are. So that's, the region. Edo North mostly because between 2008 and 2016, Adams Oshiomhole became governor. He's from Edo North, and that's why you see that the APC, of course, he became governor, with the APC, and so because of that, Edo North has seemingly now become an APC-favored region. But Edo South, has held on to the PDP, likeness, for the longest time. Since 1999, Edo South, first of all, it has the highest voting bloc, followed by Edo North and then Edo Central. And that's why it's always been a struggle for Edo Central to produce a governor. Edo South, has seemingly been a pro-PDP region. And that's why when Adams Oshiomhole eventually came in, you still see that Edo South doesn't vote APC. They continue to vote the PDP regardless. The Labour Party was the only change. And that is because the people in Edo South are seemingly more, I don't want to call them more enlightened, but because
well, they are more urban, if you ask me.
It's the urban areas.
It's the urban area, yeah.
Exactly.
Edo North is more of the rural, there are more rural areas in Edo North, So the people in Edo South, are more likely to change if they find a better option because they seem to be more independent voters. Depend on which the options are available.
I want to ask you, aren't you seeing the same thing, happening in Edo Central, saying that, they bucked the trend in 2023. They weren't just, for senatorial, they voted a particular party, and then for presidential, they voted another party in 2023.
Very true, but because they don't have the numbers, it's difficult for them to become, or their votes to become like the key deciding factor all the time. It's mostly Edo South and, Edo North. Edo Central will, of course, give whatever additions it can. But the point that I'm stressing here is why you are seeing the relevance of the APC or the emergence of the APC in Edo North because of Adams Oshiomhole. Prior to 2008, if you go back to the statistics, I'm sure that you will find that Edo North was not, in fact, APC came in 2008. So, you would not see that same voting, culture. But immediately he came in and left in 2016, Edo North then became the pro-APC region. And that's how it has been since then. It is his stronghold. It is where he is known, the most. It's where he has the most political influence. It is where he has the most political, friends. And so whichever party that he wants them to vote mostly is what, they will vote.
So
But Edo South is very different.
to repeat itself?
It's, very possible that it would repeat itself. In the presidential election, the only reason that Edo North, had whatever numbers they had is because of Adams Oshiomhole voting the APC. Because, at that point, Edo State simply was fully Labour Party inclined. But of course, the APC's emergence from Adams Oshiomhole is what gave it those numbers in 2023, I beg your pardon.
I think one thing we should be also aware of is that the senatorial elections, the results can mirror what you would be more likely what the governorship election would look like. The presidential elections tend to be a little bit hazy.
Yeah.
Because you have people who are not necessarily voters in that region, who resident there, who want to vote for a candidate that is not from that state. So their votes could go anywhere.
Yeah.
So you can't really, just like what happened in Lagos, the fact that Lagos voted somebody else for presidency is not an indication that they would vote the same party for governor.
Yeah.
So this makes the analysis even more interesting to see whether or not it's going to be a repetition of the senatorial results or of the presidential results.
All right. Perpetual Fasome Peters, thank you very much, our data analyst, for stopping by and sharing with us. These are very important statistics that you showed, and of course the voting trend since 2016. Very, very important in the conversation. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Chad. Of course, don't forget incumbency. That's another thing you probably want to consider. Bye for now.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. We have Amadi Uyi, who is, of course, still in Edo State, giving us live updates. So let's quickly bring him in, to quickly share his location with us and let us know what the situation is on ground over there. Amadi, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Quickly, just let us know your location and what the situation is like over there.
Okay, I'm standing at the Auchi Junction. I think from here officially till you get to Kogi State, this road leads straight to Okene. From here, behind where we just came from, is officially Edo Central. Why from here towards Okene is officially Edo North. Now, usually, it takes, the journey fairly should take within 20 to 30 minutes, but we've spent close to 2 hours. You would have seen some of the visuals I have sent because the road has been barricaded. You just look behind me across, you see a lot of travelers who want to transit from this position, maybe coming from Edo State towards the northern part of the country. They cannot move before the election. But I just don't want to assume. Let me speak to one of those who have been stranded, one of the travelers. First of all, can you tell me your name?
My name is Eze Manuel. My experience here has been very hectic, and I don't know how to put it, because I've been on the road now for the past 2 days. Starting from Ewu Junction, there is a little bit of heavy traffic, and we just happen to scale through that, then come to meet this one with no formal information. And at the same time, we've been here since around 1 o'clock. There's no way I'm supposed to be in Abuja. 1 a.m. 1 a.m. I'm supposed to be in Abuja. Now, I want to stop at Okila now. There's no way for me to go. And behind me, you can see we are very, very many here. Most of us stranded. We've not eaten, nothing. And there's no formal information. I don't know if there's any other route apart from this place. So that they should just even allow us to even just go our separate ways, because we are just stranded. No place.
Now, but security agencies before now, they had said that today being the day of the Edo election, there is no movement. Did you hear of that?
No, I don't stay here. I'm a businessman, and I'm not mobile, if not just for my small phone. You understand? I just happen to meet this one. Even the hold-up I'm meeting at Ewu Junction is unexpected. Coming to this place and meeting this one again is very, very disturbing. I'm just stranded. We are just stranded. Nothing, nowhere to go, nothing. We just don't even know what to do.
That is the story of those who are trying to transit through Edo State to their various destinations. You know, Edo is somewhere around the midwestern part of Nigeria. It forms a transit point to the south. If you follow the Benin area, you get to the southern part, this western part of the country. You follow the Sapele area, from the Sapele road from Benin, you get to the south, and then this axis leads you to the northern part of the country. So right now it's very clear that activities, vehicular movement is at a standstill. For us, we have been able to beat the various checkpoints because we are accredited to cover the elections. But hopefully, we'll just be updating you with more information here from Edo North.
All right, Amadine, now since you're, around Auchi area, can you please go ahead and tell us about, the voting process around the area where you are? Aren't people coming out to vote? What's happening?
Now, this central hub where I am, we've not seen any polling units around. From after I speak to you, we'll try to locate 1 or 2 polling units. But we've tried to ask people around. There's been a relatively sort of calm and peace, because at this junction, there's a very high, very heavy presence of security personnel. We have sighted soldiers here. We have sighted officers of the Nigeria Police Force. They have been on ground here. In fact, the soldiers are enforcing the no movement order. But we'll go around to get more information from those who have partaken in the poll.
Okay. I mean, reasonably, like I said earlier, it seems reasonably peaceful in Edo State. I feel sorry for that traveler who is stranded, but unfortunately, that's the way it is with elections. Amadine, thank you very much for joining us. We hope that, of course, it remains peaceful, and we have the results as quickly as possible. Thank you for your work. We'll speak with you soon.
It also brings to the fore, the importance of voter education, and the fact that, even if you didn't get to hear, you didn't get to hear the fact that Edo State will be having an election, today, you should be able to update yourself as well. He's saying that they're stranded, and stranded they will be, until the election process, is concluded.
Unfortunately. I also, just want to quickly mention, like we were saying before, about the Edo North and its, love for the APC. Adams Oshiomhole, came in with the ACN, Action Congress, in 2007, at the elections 2007. He had initially lost the election to Osumbo. Osumbo then, of course, was a member of the PDP. Won the election, and of course, when the Supreme Court, or when the court overturned the elections, Adams Oshiomhole got in as governor under the ACN. It was only in 2016 that he then dumped or 2013, I beg your pardon, that he then dumped the ACN and moved to the APC, basically. So that's how Edo North then became fully in love with the APC, mostly because of Adams Oshiomhole and his political relevance and influence in Edo State. Back to what Adeni Kunu was saying, I'm going to bring George Ashiru on this one. One of the things that he pointed out was Governor Godwin Obaseki. Now, you can point out and say, okay, where did most of his development lie? People would say, okay, maybe Edo South, right? Where Benin City is, the state capital. When Adams Oshiomhole was governor, when you ask people where did most of his, developmental work go, they will say Edo North, because that's where he's from. And so those are certain things that eventually create some level of love for a politician, for a political party in the elections. Will Godwin Obaseki and, of course, his focus on Edo South help Aso Ighodalo in this situation?
Now, if a particular part of a state is already being developed and developed over various administrations, it wouldn't make a difference anymore.
Yeah.
It's a bit like saying that somebody has built a new bridge in Ikeja. Ikeja has been going through development since 1966. So in the urban areas, that's not really where you're going to get any difference just because you have built something extra. But your style of leadership, your mien as a person, your charisma, your character will make a difference in many instances. I think that the south of Edo is, like you said, sophisticated. It also has a higher population because there's urban migration.
Yes.
And people don't tend to go back to vote. They vote now where they're resident. They don't go vote from where they originally migrated from. And so what happens is over time, when people migrate to urban areas, they tend to vote the party that is most popular there. So that's why you see that you will see that people who are voting in a particular pattern in the north will continue voting because that's the preponderant party. Yeah. But once they move, then the dynamics change.
Shift, yes.
The dynamics change because information flies a little bit differently. The kind of areas in which people are operating, they're influenced by what is going on around there. So incumbency helps you when you are the one running for election. Yeah. But when somebody else is coming, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
It's only the monopoly your party has in the political system that makes a difference when there's an incumbency. But if your party is not, like Edo State has been shifted, like you said, Edo State has been shifting between AC, APC, PDP, now Labour is trending. So Edo State is actually in a shift, in a political shift, paradigm shift in Edo State.
Yeah, I like how interesting it is. Yes. Mr. Kunu, I know you're still with us, and I'm sure you enjoyed the breakdown of voting history since 2016. So tell us, your views on, those details. Edo North mostly voting APC, Edo South mostly voting, the PDP, and of course, in the presidential elections, they went straight for Labour Party. How relevant is it in the elections for today?
Take away the relevance of the development, because you must agree with me that when people settle in a particular area, and they find out that there's something that is predominant, it is more or less like what they'll do. If you look at it, taking development to Edo South from places like Edo Central and from places like Edo North will definitely shift the position of people. And I think that is actually a disservice to the tenets of democracy. In any functional democratic system, there's always the need to balance out the scales with regard to provision of infrastructure, because an area that is developed will likely have more schools will expose people to more literacy will expose them to being better educated will help them to actually participate in the electoral process. But if development is lacking in an area, there will be schools that are non-existent, there will be infrastructure that become obsolete, and there will definitely be more or less like apathy towards election because they feel that the basics needed in an area are not provided. And even if those people register to vote, you must agree with me that getting to participate consistently in the electoral process will be something they wouldn't want to do, because at that point in time, everything that would have propelled them to participate in the process actually has been taken away from them. So I think that there should be a demand, and I'm saying this very deliberately. There has to be a demand on every governor who occupies this office to provide equal level of infrastructure. Excuse me, if you don't develop an area, you don't have businesses, you don't have investment in such areas. So you see that there's consolidated stagnation and backwardness in places like Edo Central, where infrastructure cannot be compared to what you have in Edo South.
Yeah.
And I think that that itself completely cuts off from the reality of ensuring that people are dealt with on a positive parallel when it comes to participating in election. So we have it as a fact that cannot be actually questioned that Edo South will account for approximately 46 to 47% of those that will make certain important decisions in this election, followed by those from the North. But it is therefore key to ensure that when you talk about future elections, and that's why the person who takes over, I hope that any of your team or some other persons will be appointed in government so that this research analysis you have provided will be the data with which they are able to start re-engineering the areas where people are not voting from. You can imagine, for instance, if government decides, maybe anybody who gets into office, to begin certain projects in Edo Central that can immediately, more or less like attract no less than 500,000 people out of the 4-point-something million population that is estimated in Edo State. You can see a revamp of that. So I think it is key, therefore, forthwith to allow such things happen so that there will be penetration of development that will engender positive countenance of participating in election. Because while we are celebrating it, we may not be able to do anything. We have to consider the areas that have been disadvantaged.
Yeah, I think that has been brilliantly put. And I like, the aspect that you mentioned, that whoever it is that wins needs to understand that, where he's not getting a huge voting block, he needs to focus on those areas, and see if he can win, a fan base over there. Those, I believe, are some of the things that, almost reassure you of a re-election, after 4 years. Depends also on how well you do. Adeni Ikuni, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We enjoyed your analysis. And we would like to have you back whenever a winner is declared in Edo State. Hopefully, nobody is going to court this time, but we would love to have you back, join us and speak with us again.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you guys. Good job. Good job. I appreciate it. And I miss you. I miss you in that studio. All right. Have a good one. I'm far away now, but we'll see sometime later. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
That's fine.
Bye.
Okay. Well, for those of us who are still...
I'm sorry, yes. Permit me to say something about that particular road. Before Amadin actually spoke about, the road linking to the north and, all that, I was actually going to say that I remember passing through that road when I was a lot younger, and that road has been like that for a very long time. We've seen, the APC come into power. We've seen the PDP come into power. Is there a reason why that road, which is very strategic, especially when you're going into Edo State, is there a reason why that road has been left that way? Has not been, nothing much has been done about that particular road for this long a period of time?
I don't know. It's an Auchi. It's the Auchi road, isn't it? That's the word.
Is it a federal government road?
I believe it should be.
It should.
It should, yeah.
So that tells you that the problem is at the federal level. So if the federal government, if the party in power, the voting tendency of the people in that region is towards the opposition, the federal government will probably ignore that road. You see, we've seen patterns like that. Look at the Abeokuta road, Abeokuta road that's been there for ages. And, for years we found that because those who were in power in Abuja did not want Lagos State to be able to take benefit for every sort of development of federal structures, they kind of ignore it and say, why should we pour money in Lagos? Let them use their resource in that area. And then people are punished for that. We've seen that even at different local governments. Senatorial districts that don't deliver for the governorship, there's no interest there. So I think that could be a political reason why some of these spaces...
Auchi is in Edo North.
Yes.
Adams Oshiomhole is senator representing Edo North.
Yes.
He's with the APC.
Yes.
So you would expect, isn't this some of the things that he should be able to...
Even within the party, there is a problem.
Oh, wow.
You understand? Even within the party, the presidency and the people in the presidency have to be at the best of, don't forget it was a party chairman that was unceremoniously removed.
Yeah.
So there are lots of things we do not really know, but the things I've learned from being in party politics is that a lot of these things is because you're not able to sell the need for the federal government to take resources and bring it and spend it there. So if they're going to spend 50 billion, they will ask, how many votes are we going to get? What's the point? So why don't we spend the money somewhere else and then let another administration go and focus on that?
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes the state government will say, I will use out of my resources to build it because it's important, and then I'll get my money back. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But the only reason that a very important road is not built, I can assure you, if it's not purely economic, then it's just political.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. Obviously, from what we've analyzed, winning Edo South is not enough to win the elections. You might get the numbers, but you may not get the number of local government areas, that are required, to win the election. And so, every candidate, that swings Edo, South still needs to pick up some places in Edo North and Edo Central. Edo Central currently has the lowest voting numbers, but of course, still very relevant in determining who becomes governor of Edo State 2024. Will we be going to court or not? Nobody knows. But
what we should be interested in is now a 3-horse race.
Yes.
And the margins of victory is probably going to be very tiny.
Yes.
So it is important to win everywhere.
So just let me just quickly ask. The craving for a different party, you saw that in 2023 with the presidential elections. Do you think that too much time has passed between then and now to reduce the relevance or the expectations of Labour Party?
I'm not sure I understand why that would be this idea of a new party. Labour was never a new party.
Well, in Edo State, in the Edo State election conversation, Labour was new.
Labour as a party was never a new party. That's the truth. We need to differentiate between the excitement of having a presidential candidate that then cascaded to all the various elections at that particular time, and the personal attachment people then have. So is the attachment of the people to the candidate at the top of the ticket? Is it to the party? We are going to find out now. These statistics are built based on a series, of measurements.
Yeah.
So we have only just started in 2023, and it is right now that we're going to find out whether it's genuine.
Yeah.
Because even in Lagos State, where people got the results that shocked them the most, there is no need for anyone to be able to project forward that there will be a repetition of the same thing, because attachment to a party is a lot different if the candidate at the top is not the person that they want.
Very true. George Ashiru, thank you very much for stopping by. We would have you join us, God willing, next week, so we can talk more about the ADC itself, and of course, its plans for Lagos State, for Nigeria, and other details. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right.